I will now call the Community Safety Committee meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. Prior to moving into open delegation, I would like to run through the items of discussion for discussion to see if members would like to deal with them on consent or hold them for discussion. So if you hold it, it's been held. Otherwise, it's approved on consent. For items that are not held, they'll be deemed approved with no further discussion on that matter. These items will then move forward to General Committee meeting scheduled for October 9th, 2024 for consideration. So there's no public meetings for this committee today. We do have one open delegation to be received this evening from Lucy Gowers from Youth Haven. So Ms. Gowers, perfect, nice to see you again. So in accordance with the city's procedural bylaw, a maximum of 5 minutes permitted to speak. I'll give a little bit of that seems short. Trust me, I know, I talk a lot. So the little feedback I'll give is members of council can ask questions. So if there's content you can't get to, and maybe at the end you say, it'd be really great if somebody asked me a question about this, then we can still stick with procedural fairness, but we haven't seen you in a while, and I'm sure I know you have lots of great updates. So take advantage of the question and answers. So I will now call upon Ms. Gowers to approach the podium to deliver the open delegation. The 5 minutes starts with the timer on the screen.
Just have to make sure everyone could hear me. Awesome, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, I have a lot to say about the great work of Youth Haven, but I will do my best to keep it within the 5 minutes, and then I will entertain questions if anyone has any thereafter. Mr. Mayor, members of the Community Safety Committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I am here to tell you about Youth Haven and the urgent need for the construction of our new shelter. Youth Haven is committed to the cause of ending youth homelessness. Our programs and support for youth experiencing homelessness or at risk of becoming homeless are impressive. Each year, we assist around 200 unique clients through our emergency shelter and transitional housing program, with many more served through outreach services. Our life skills development program is more client-focused than ever, empowering youth to transition to independent living. Last year, we kept 121 youths from sleeping on the streets. 29 youths were enrolled in our transitional housing program, and over 300 youths accessed our outreach program, which up until the end of March of this year happened to be located throughout the county of Simcoe. We supported 104 youths to secure and maintain permanent housing with help from our programs. Youth Haven delivers much needed services through the programs and supports we provide. Every youth we serve receives support to help them navigate adulthood, acquire essential life skills, and find stability in housing. Through our collaborative efforts, we connect youth to employment opportunities, educational programs, and permanent housing. This past June, 7 of our youth graduated from high school, and all 7 were accepted into college. Additionally, from September 1st until today, I learned that 3 of our youth have moved into our transitional housing program, and 3 of our youth have moved into rental units. As of today to October 3rd, 5 more of our youth will be moving out of our shelter and in with their families or into a rental unit. This is what we do. While our accomplishments are significant, they're just the beginning. The youth we serve deserve our best, and we're dedicated to providing just that. As you know, our current facility struggles to meet the growing demand of the services and, of course, is beyond repair. Fortunately, with the incredible support from the Simcoe County Home Builders Association, we have plans for a new shelter designed specifically for our youth. This facility will not only provide a safe and welcoming environment, but will also expand our capacity from 19 to 31 beds, allowing us to support even more youth in need. The new shelter will include 14 shared bedrooms, 3 single rooms, a lounge, a study area, an eat-in kitchen, a dedicated doctor's space, counseling offices, and so much more. Outdoor recreational space, and through careful planning, we've designed the facility to align perfectly with the needs of the youth that we serve. However, we are in a critical situation, and the delay in starting the new build is having serious consequences. As you may know, we are currently housing our youth in a local hotel as a temporary solution. While this allows us to continue serving them, it's not the ideal situation to be in, and costs are rising quickly. We are incurring a cost of approximately $49,000 a month to house our youth. Each day we delay incurs additional expenses that could be better invested in our new shelter, which of course would provide much needed stability and support. I know that my time is up, so I'm just going to end by saying that we can't overlook the message that we need to ensure that we are going to build this new facility for our youth. The message that we want to give our community is that we care. In order for us to be able to do that, we need everybody to come together. I want to thank you for bringing together our community.
Thank you, Ms. Gowers. That wasn't me, by the way. That's our new technology. Thank you so much for your time. So any member of committee want to ask a question?
They put you on a timer.
Oh, I'm getting timed? Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. That's funny. Oh, my. Does anybody from committee first have any questions for Ms. Gowers? Mayor Nuttall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I made a joke in a meeting today that you and I were the ones that needed timers, just you and me.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, for all the work that you do. I know our planning department and building services department's been working closely to get through as many of the obstacles as possible. I believe that we did get through to the point of approval. Is there a specific item that you're looking for today outside of awareness and just drumming up that community support?
So basically, I'm just here to raise awareness, and again, just to basically inspire, appeal to everyone that our build is such an important investment in our community, and that we hope that we can come together as quickly as possible to make it happen.
And do you have a fundraising campaign currently underway? And if so, where would somebody go to be able to go and access that?
We do. We have a current capital campaign that started, I'm going to say just about a year and a half ago. We're currently at $650,000 of $1 million in dollars raised so far, with an anticipation, of course, of a lot more. Anyone that's interested in making a donation, please go to our website. You can either find New Haven for youthhaven.ca, or please go to youthhaven.ca, and that'll take you to the page where you can actually access information and make a donation.
Awesome, thank you, and thank you for all the work that's done by Youth Haven. It's a place that when I was a member of Parliament, we were able to provide summer students some funding for, and was able to come and meet and tour, and it's just beautiful lives being influenced. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I'm just going to add a quick question. Normally I would hand it on to my general committee members first, but this one's very closely related to a comment Mayor Nuttall said. Ms. Gowers, so in your presentation, and I think you kind of clarified a little bit, but I just want to leave no ambiguity. In your presentation, you either said directly or implied that the build is delayed, and that there's just some, nobody doing it on purpose, but there's just, it's delayed, and there's some, and you were hoping that like the delays can like go away, so you guys obviously can continue. So maybe it's just my vantage point, but as a member of council, when I hear that from a stakeholder, I think, is it something to do with planning development services? Is it something to do with infrastructure, pipes, connections, stakeholders, utilities, third-party companies? And when Mayor Nuttall kind of clarified, that he's like, hey, I thought we kind of figured most of that stuff out. What is it? And you said you wanted to just bring awareness, which is fine, which is great. This is a great platform. But I just want to confirm, so based on the answer you gave Mayor Nettle, you're not raising any specific concerns, and they're always objective, they're never personal, but you're not raising any concerns with anything to planning, development, or infrastructure. Because if that is the case, as appropriate, this is now the time to, at the very least, start the discussion.
Well, to that, I'm going to say this. I appreciate everything that's being done for us. I recognize that this is a very special build and that everyone is coming together to put this amazing project together. We've had an amazing opportunity that was given to us from the Simcoe County Home Builders Association, who are motivated to build a new facility for our youth in need. I understand that there's protocol, I understand that there's a procedure. So why I'm here today is to basically, again, appeal to everybody that this is such an important build for us at this time, and I'm hoping to just inspire everyone to really get behind us. The youth are our future, and we want to make sure that we're providing them with as much as we possibly can to ensure that they're in a position where they can serve us in our community the best way they possibly can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hearing no specificities, I will leave that be. If something does come up later, it sounds like our work's already been done, and please reach out as appropriate. I do want to comment. I make a compliment here. Your site plan, like basically the layout of the building, incredible, extremely efficient, very well designed. And I mean the inner workings, not so much the outer, because that's a whole different thing. But as you can appreciate too, just some of the setbacks and some of the driveways, there's lots of unique things that have been accommodated that normally based on policies just would have gone maybe a different way. And every land parcel is looked at on an individual basis, so no favors or anything, but the uniqueness. So that has already been done, and I'm sure you're already aware of that. So I just wanted to do that because I know our departments work hard. They understand the severity of the issue, but they also have to apply their professional lens. So I'll hand it over to any other committee members first if you have questions or comments. Councilor Corser.
Just a quick comment, actually. You guys, obviously, organization does an incredible amount of work and good work in our community, and I just wanted to give a plug to my brother, who actually spent a significant amount of volunteer hours at the downtown location when it was located upstairs on Dunlop Street. A very long time ago, and he very much enjoyed that time there. He found it very satisfying, and I just really happy to see how far it's grown since then. So keep up the fantastic, great work.
We will, thank you. I think our goal is to transform as many lives as we can for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Corser. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, hi, Lucy. Thank you for the delegation and stuff and understanding and bringing the awareness to something that is unfortunately needed in our community, but we appreciate all the work you do. You mentioned some numbers, and it sounds like you're having a really positive, of reintegration back to homes and stuff like that. Are you having any challenges with employment for your kids and stuff? Are you finding some of that? Is there some awareness we could bring or for that, with employers, if they are looking for people to reach out directly to you?
Of course, there's always an opportunity to raise that kind of awareness for us. I'm extremely proud of the work that my staff does. We basically take something out of nothing and we do great work with it. As I said, I've shared some amazing numbers with you. We've transformed some amazing lives who are members of our community today and who have come back to support Youth Haven in many, many ways. If there's an opportunity for you to continue to raise awareness for Youth Haven, whether it's for employment, education, for housing, please do so. Please have them reach out to us. We would love to have a conversation with them. I would love to invite them to come through our transitional housing, and when our new shelter is built, an opportunity for everybody to come through the shelter, because we do great work. And as you said, it's unfortunately very necessary for us to do.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Any non-members of committee questions or comments? Councilor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, Thank you for being here. Great presentation. I always appreciate when someone from the community comes and speaks and gives us some background. So happy to spread and create some community awareness in terms of donations and volunteering and whatnot. But quick question in terms of timelines. What is the anticipated timeline, and has the permit been issued already? And maybe that's for staff, but just from your perspective, what are the timelines that are being aimed for?
We're still hoping to be in our home by Christmas. It would be wonderful for us to celebrate Christmas in our new shelter. I don't have any definite timelines at the moment. And again, we're still waiting on the final permit to be issued to us. And then once that happens, I think things will happen pretty quickly.
Okay. And then just to redirect maybe back to staff, do we have a timeline on when permits are going to be issued? Generally?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Hamilton, we'll have to get back to you on that. We'll look into it and give you a time.
Perfect, excellent. Well, I think you're hearing support around the table to make sure we meet the timelines, and I'm sure staff will do their best as well. So thank you again, appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Any other non-members of committee? Seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation, your passion, and the endeavor. Ms. Gowers, while you were presenting, you said, you used the word shelter at one point in your presentation. That word has evolved. Some people think it's great, some people think it's not so great. It's truly a haven, right? It's a haven and a place of protection for a lot of people who are in need. It's in your name, so it's not original, it's in your name. But I just kind of really wanted to emphasize that. I know there's lots of leaders of the community that volunteer in the media that are here, they're involved. So if anybody's watching this, they're like, how can I help? Just besides a check or money, which I'm sure they can find on your website. I know there's a resident in my ward that is, on the volunteer board and has done great work. And everywhere I turn, somebody usually has like a Youth Haven story, or at least knows somebody who has. So it's a great organization. Thank you for your work. Good luck with all the other processes. And we all collectively look forward to seeing the Haven be there for people.
Can I just end by saying one thing?
Yeah.
By being able to be here and share our story, by being able to have an opportunity to raise awareness for the work that we do and the successes that we have for our youth, you're bringing hope to them. They really appreciate when you have an opportunity to check out our social media and comment on it or like it. So please continue doing that. Please stay aware of what we're doing. And if you can help in any way, please do so, because you do give hope.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Much better than I could have done. Back to the agenda. So thank you, Ms. Cook, for reminding me. So I actually skipped. I should have gone to the consent items, and I didn't. So we are going to go to the consent item. Ms. Cook, does that include the deferred item? Perfect. Perfect. So I'm going to go through these. So members of council, we're going to jump for a second to 5.1. 5.1, memorandum from T. Banting, Manager of Enforcement Services, and W. Cook, City Clerk, Director of Legislative Court and Court Services, dated June 17th, 2024, regarding the enforcement services proactive enforcement results, May 1st, 2023 to April 30th, 2024, implementation. Can I have a member of committee place the correspondence on the floor to be received? Oh, sorry, my apologies. If there are holds, please indicate hold, member of committee. If there are no holds, it is approved. It is received on consent. Seeing none, it is received on consent. Section 6.1, there are 5 advisory committee reports to be received. So okay, perfect. So we're just going to receive the reports. If I'm just going to do them in bulk, and if somebody wants to flesh them out, then so be it. So we're going to receive 6.1, Senior and Accessibility Advisory Committee, dated May 27th, 2024, as well as Seniors and Accessibility Advisory Committee, dated June 17th, 2024, as well as Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, dated July 23rd, 2024, and Seniors and Accessibility Advisory Committee, dated September 16th, 2024, and the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, dated September 17th, 2024. So those are in bulk. Are there any holds on receiving just the reports, not the recommendations? Seeing none, those are approved on consent. The two recommendations were from the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee dated September 17th, 2024. The first recommendation is concerning budget expenditure approval to hire consultant. That's a fun headline. I'm going to read it out. That a budget of up to $125,000 be approved for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee to hire a consultant to support the review and any revisions to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Could I have a member of committee place this on the floor for deliberation? Mayor Nettle, place on the floor, Mayor Nettle. Ms. Cook, sorry, it's been a summer recess. Do I need a seconder for that? Or, perfect. If nobody wants to hold the recommendation, it's approved on consent as well? Okay. So my apologies, Mayor Nettle. I'm just going to retract that a bit. It's been quite a summer recess, so we're going to stick to the consent agenda. So I've read the motion of the budget. Does anybody wish to hold the item? Nope, seeing no holds, the item has been approved. And then finally, the second recommendation is additional membership or memberships, that the composition of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee be amended to add member representatives from the County of Simcoe, bracket, social housing, comma, emergency shelters and homelessness prevention programming, and bracket, and from the Barrie Area Native Advisory Circle. Are there any holds on that item?
Hold, please.
Held by Councillor Corser. Perfect. So now, members of committee, if you will indulge me, we will go back to presentations. So section 3. There are two presentations on the agenda this afternoon. The first presentation, 3.1A, is from representatives of the Development Services Department. I would like to now call upon the Development Services Department to deliver the presentation. So Ms. Banfield, Executive Director of Development Services, you have 10 minutes for your presentation. That felt so aggressive to say. You've listened to me for more than 10 minutes in the past, so.
I thank you for the introduction. We're going to get the slide show started, and you introduced me. Thank you very much. And I've got, oh, no, sorry, not that one, Carl. That's the only one you have? The actual presentation, sorry. thanks. We will get started. Thanks for the introduction again. This is Michelle Banfield, Executive Director. I'm joined here today with Steve Rose, who's a manager in the Traffic Services Department, Tom Hanrahan, who's a supervisor, Jeff Sharp is a supervisor, and Frank Palka is a senior manager with our department. So just here today to talk to you a little bit about the department, traffic, and ROA, and the different sections of this portion of development services. I think all of these names are probably very familiar to all of you because these are the guys that you are emailing and meeting out on site and meeting with residents because community safety is extremely important to not only yourselves but to all of our residents. So you're not going to hear from me too much. Jeff and Tom are going to take it away, but I thank you in advance for your attention.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, Chair Morales and members of committee. My name is Jeff Sharp, and I'm the Supervisor of Traffic Operations and Community Safety. The main focus of our traffic operations group is to ensure the safety of our pedestrians and motorists as they navigate our wonderful city. Staff use sound engineering judgment, industry best practices, data, along with their Ontario Traffic Manual guidelines within the confines of the Highway Traffic Act to make recommendations for the installation of various traffic signs and devices, our ASE cameras, pavement markings, and our traffic calming devices that we implement across the city. Staff have access to a collision database which houses all of the collisions that have occurred within the City of Barrie since September 2014. Staff develop crash rates using this data to equally evaluate intersections and road segments. Collision data is also used for the implementation of always stop warrants, signal warrants, and pedestrian crossing warrants. Staff also have the ability to identify trends, which we then use for modifications to traffic signals, make suggestions for improvements to our pavement marking system, and also the implementation of new signage. Traffic calming is a very effective measure that we implement on the majority of our local roads based on feedback from yourselves and the public. Our various traffic calming measures have the ability to reduce the operating speed by approximately 5 to 12 kilometers an hour. We also look at implementing radar speed boards on our larger arterial and collector roads. These typically reduce the operating speed by approximately 5 kilometers an hour. They're also a good device just to inform the motoring public on the speed that they're traveling. Recently, staff implemented 10 pedestrian crossing bollards, 1 per ward throughout the city. These bollards are essentially used to bring the attention to the crosswalk to the motorist and also to help the pedestrian cross the road. Staff also coordinate our efforts with Barrie Police when it comes to traffic enforcement, and we also coordinate our efforts around schools with the school board when looking to implement no parking restrictions or no stopping restrictions to increase the safety of pedestrians. Pavement markings are a very important device that we have, not only for assisting pedestrians across the street, but also safely guiding motorists. All of our pavement markings are retraced on an annual basis, including our major roadways, which typically are done twice a year. Those would include our roads like Bayfield Street, Essa Road, Cundles Road, those larger arterials that carry larger volumes of traffic. The paint just doesn't seem to last as long as it would due to the weaving and just high volume. To date, ASE is probably our most effective speed enforcement measure that we have in the city. When the cameras are present, we've seen a reduction in operating speed by 8 to 16 kilometers an hour. Lastly, I'd like to talk about modifications to some of our local intersections. When we receive complaints from the public or from yourselves, we've been successful at implementing some left turn lanes, which not only increase the safety of the intersection, but also have a potential to reduce vehicle collisions. On that note, I'd like to pass it along to Tom Hanrahan.
Thank you, Jeff. Chair Morales and members of the committee, my name is Tom Hanrahan. I'm the supervisor of traffic systems and right-of-way inspection. So on the traffic side of things, we look after everything electrical, traffic signals, street lighting, CCTV cameras, and their central system. We process roughly 2,000 service requests a year, mostly regarded to traffic signal maintenance and related concerns. About 5 to 10% of those concerns are directly related to pedestrian safety at intersections. And the conversation usually goes, a parent is concerned about crossing the road or getting to the school and how the signals operate. That conversation usually involves us talking about how we time the signals. So signals are timed differently near generators, near schools or senior centers because they require more time to cross the road. So we provide different set of signal timings to get those folks across the road. It is all it counts on them pushing the pedestrian button. So pushing that pedestrian button provides a different set of signal timings than the vehicular signal timings that are typically at the intersection. We provide signs at all the intersections to advise residents of what that looks like and how to safely cross the road. One of the things we always say to our pedestrians that have concerns around intersections is making eye contact with those drivers as you cross the roads, crossing with intent, and just generally being aware, so cell phones away and all those sorts of things. One of our other programs that we've been successful with, and some of you have been involved in it, is our graffiti abatement program, where we're wrapping traffic signals with art that's been provided by local artists. Super successful, really discourages tagging and other graffiti on those traffic cabinets with the busy artwork that's present on the cabinets. Traffic intersections have a lot of equipment at them, and we rely on that equipment to operate safely and move our motorists and our pedestrians around our city safely. We test that equipment twice a year, removing the equipment, calibrating it, sending it off for repair if it's faulty. All those components are tested twice a year, and as well we do an intersection inspection where we go around and we ensure that push buttons are working and backboards are safe and nothing's unsafe for pedestrians to walk around the intersection. Also, staff review every streetlight in the city. Once a year, we put eyes on every single streetlight to ensure that those streetlights are working, lighting up the roadway, and if they're damaged, we're documenting that and moving on to a program later on the year to fix that up. And one of the other benefits that we get from that is we can identify areas in the city, some of those legacy areas that are more dimly lit, or the tree canopy is covering those roadways, and we can get our urban forestry folks to get in and trim those trees up and get the light back on the road where it's supposed to be. Both of these inspection programs, we exceed the Ontario Minimum Maintenance Standard Regulation 23902. We exceed those programs by checking twice a year for traffic signals and then once every year for the street lighting. The other part of our group that Jeff and I look after is the right-of-way activity group, so the ROA department, and we're providing and requesting permits for basically all activity of work that occurs within the right-of-way between the property lines on the roadway. Really, we're just ensuring that those city standards are being met for construction, safety, detour management, and especially restoration of those boulevards and those areas where people are working. They tend to be the smaller projects, the utilities, the homeowners that are doing pools and those sorts of things. The big part of that is detour management. So again, ensuring that detours are not overlapping and we're not moving traffic from one traffic construction area into another, and ensuring that traffic can move around as part of those projects continue. Really, we're just ensuring that the right-of-way is safe, free of material. Contractors aren't storing bins and equipment and material on the roads, and that people can move around safely, and that any sort of excavated pits or areas that are being left for long term, the utilities tend to come in and wrap those areas up, and we encourage them to make those areas safe, and so that our pedestrians and our homeowners can trust that it's being done properly. So.
Thanks very much for your attention. That concludes our formal presentation. We're happy to answer questions the best that we can.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Banfield, Mr. Sharp, and Mr. Handerhan. Deputy Mayor Thompson, you signaled. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Through you to, I guess, whoever's in charge of the graffiti abatement. Um, on traffic signals, because we own the infrastructure and stuff, I find that we're really quick, or fences, and, you know, you guys deal with in a lot of things. Um, Can you maybe just talk about how challenging it is when it comes to hydro boxes? Because I understand that we are unable to touch them because they're energized and stuff like that, so fully understanding there's a risk. But is there a better way that we can, you know, force the group to come out and take care of their infrastructure? Because you drive through some neighborhoods, every single box is tagged.
Through you, Chair Morales, to Deputy Mayor Thompson. Yeah, so we've got a good relationship with all the utilities, whether Rogers or Bell or even the postal outlets, and we communicate that when we have graffiti identified, part of our group is to go back out and work those partners to get it cleaned up. It does happen quickly. It does get re-tagged quickly, but our group is certainly all ears if it comes to those concerns, and can communicate that back out to the utilities or other partners.
So so as for council, like moving forward, it's best just to email you direct to, you know, probably Service Barrie and then to Ms. Banfield, and then it'll basically take the appropriate channels there.
Correct, yeah, through you to through Chair Morales to you, Deputy Mayor Thompson, yes. So Service Barrie is the best way to get that information to us.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilor Corser.
Through you, Chair Morales, to our wonderful traffic department, headed up by Michelle Banfield. Thank you so much for being here today. I just have a few questions. Of course I do. Just some clarification questions. It's my understanding that traffic services does not handle moving violations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so that would be through Barrie Police Services?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser. Absolutely, we work very, very closely with our Barrie Police team in terms of sharing our data, pointing out hot points, things that we hear from residents and from yourselves, and say, you know, this is what our data is showing. Can you have a presence there? And that we kind of report back and forth, and we work very closely with our team, which is probably why we're here together tonight.
I just wanted to ask that question because I know that a lot of residents actually don't understand that they contact the traffic, the Service Barrie, and they don't understand that moving violations are not actually within your purview, correct? Yeah. Yeah, okay. And also, I noticed on the slide about rate of accidents. And that's an interesting number because as certain platforms and information is rampant these days, I see that we have quite a drop from, I'm not going to include COVID times because a lot of people were not active driving around in that window, so I know it's kind of an anomaly. But I see that 2019, our accident and collision rates are actually lower now than they were in 2019.
That is correct.
That is correct. Do you have more historical data, maybe? Is that available anywhere online? Or I hate to, ask for something that you might not have like handy this evening, but.
Certainly can put together more historical data. I think there's probably lots of reasons why the data has fluctuated, and as you pointed out yourself, Councillor Corser, taking out 2020. But I think there's been a lot of work that council has done to look at speed reductions and overall traffic calming, that roadworks improvements, all those sorts of things, left-hand turn lanes. There's lots of things that collectively have gone into really working to reduce collision rates. Of course, it's not perfect and it's not a perfect science, but I think that there's been a lot of elements that this council and previous councils have put into to try to make our roads safer.
I just really wanted to highlight that because it is a very hot topic on lots of social media platforms and all sorts of places. I'm not saying that actual driving is more respectful, but the data shows that the collision rates are actually less than they were in the last 4 years, even excluding the anomaly of the COVID era. So 2019, we're actually less than. I wanted to highlight that. And also we've had this conversation around the table before about constable cardboard. and how a lot of residents give negative feedback to that. But I've done a little bit of a dive on research that's been done on those, and I just wanted to highlight again that, as you may know, and you could highlight yourself about how effective they are, but they're just not effective over long term. Isn't that correct?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser. So I would say Constable Cutout, as we like to call him or her, is just but one traffic calming tool. And I would say that people either kind of love them or hate them. We have some councillors that actually ask us to use them. Some councillors that, you know, as you said, are fielding social media. I think it's important to remember that again, we do it in partnership with Barrie Police, where, you know, we'll have Constable Cutout there. We can do kind of our own data at the time, and then we can, you know, report back to Barrie Police, so that, you know, within the next day or two after Constable Cutout was there, it won't be Constable Cutout, it'll be an actual police officer. So when Constable Cutout does go into a neighborhood, it means that there's going to be, you know, 2 to 3 to 4, almost 5 days of, you know, as I said, either the constable or the police, the actual police constable. So and it is just but one tool. But, you know, we do actually, the fact that residents are even noticing it proves that it's actually effective.
Yeah, before I was even in office, I remember watching a science show about psychology and how those cutouts are actually incredibly effective. Um, and the timing on the lights, that was related and changed, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that was part of the Age-Friendly Communities Initiative.
Through you, Councillor, or Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser. It's always been our policy at the City of Barrie, and
Okay.
is fairly typical throughout Ontario practice.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And one last question. I suppose I would probably have hundreds more that I can always take offline. But the one last question that I get a lot of inquiries about from residents is the bridge timing. And I know it's a big work through our infrastructure, but we don't really always have the final say as the City of Barrie of when these bridges are actually worked on or taken out or being taken offline. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Corser, we work really closely with our partners at MTO, but they usually have their schedule of capital planning. What we do try to do is, when we do know that they're going to be in an area, if we can kind of do any sort of city projects at the same time to try to limit disruption overall. But you're correct that the province has their own capital plan and their own timing.
I just want to, and with infrastructure in the city, it's always updating, changing, you know, we have to keep up with our growth and all the different things. So there is a lot of construction, and it's comes with living in a area that has winter and all the impacts of that has on our roads, expanding and contracting and all the things. So I just want to say kudos to the traffic department for some of the things they've brought forward this summer, the new bullards that I've seen in areas. And I just really like to thank the traffic department, because I know they get a lot of heat a lot of the time. And I just want to thank you for coming forward and doing this presentation for us.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. Any members of committee? Nope, seeing none. Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Chair Morales. I want to ask a question about detours. At the moment, we have part of Grove Street closed and part of Duckworth closed, and that pushes traffic into the neighborhoods. And I'm wondering if you, when you're looking at where the detours are going, do you look at, is there a possibility of doing traffic calming during that detour period, simply because there's an awful lot of traffic that goes onto some of these local streets. So I get a lot of concern about that from time to time.
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Riepma. That's a very good point, and we have received also complaints or concerns from residents due to the influx of traffic when it's detoured from a closure. We do have the ability to look at other traffic calming measures. It's a little far down the road right now to like implement speed cushions and stuff, but we do have the constable cutout, which we have available until the snow flies to install. And yeah, we have in the past planned to put traffic calming in those sort of influx neighborhoods. We just, unfortunately, it's a little late in the season to plan that for this year, but 2025, definitely we can keep it on the radar for next year's speed cushion program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other non-members of committee? Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morales. Again, thanks for being here. A huge thank you. I think we probably, as a collective, work more with you than anybody else, considering this is always number one concern. Can you just elaborate a little bit on finalizing the new traffic calming policy in the fall of 2024? Are there any sort of key changes or things that will be introduced within the new policy that we should be aware of?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Hamilton, thanks so much for the question. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what the traffic calming policy would intend to do would be to provide some kind of grading and ranking classifications of roads, some characteristics of roads that may be suitable for some types of traffic calming, and then which roads may not be suitable. And then there all are so many different toolboxes and different things. You've mentioned the bollards and temporary speed cushions. And really, I think what the intent of trying to bring a more standardized approach to the city is to at least give councils some more information when they are getting those residents inquiries. You can say, well, this is this type of a road and this type of a volume and that sort of thing. So we're trying to kind of, the intent of it is to establish some of those tools, but also to kind of establish a little bit of consistency across the city, because as you know, all of you are at different times saying, what about this street and what about that street and what about, and then I understand how frustrated, you know, you get and your residents get when we do the study and we're like, this actually is, there isn't a traffic problem here. And I think that's, I would say, probably one of the single biggest things that we'd want the traffic calming policy to look at, is that little bit of a standardized approach, and then a little bit less of the reactive approach, if that makes sense to you.
Yes, thank you. That's super. And then just in terms of the approach for this year to be putting in a request for the traffic calming, is that going to be kind of the fall too? Is that going to be aligned with the release of the policy? Is it the same approach that we've used in the past?
Through you, Chair Morales, to Councillor Hamilton, we believe that for 2025, we'll do what Council is familiar with in terms of the way we have done before. The seasonal traffic calming is most likely going to be coming out in the next month or so, October-ish usually, to make sure that we don't have any early snow. We'll do what we did last year, where we do that little wrap-up email to you, say this is where it was, this was some of the feedback that we heard, these were some of the locations that we maybe didn't use this year, but we heard from residents they want it. We'll do that little wrap-up, and then we'll propose selections for next year, and probably with the same deadline of trying to get that from council the beginning of December, so that we can contract it all out at the same time. So at this point, I don't expect the traffic calming policy to change that for 2025.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Any other? Yeah, we'll go back, Councillor.
Thank you for indulging me. You're just picking up on what Councillor Hamilton said about how we dole out speed bumps and other traffic calming measures such as planters, etc. It's very difficult when it becomes almost a squeaky wheel situation, or a politicized situation where some streets are getting traffic calming that don't need it, and other streets that may need it, because we do only have a small bucket of actual traffic calming items to spread around our wards. And having the data is really important so that we can explain to residents that, well, actually the reason why you don't have a speed bump is because you don't have a speeding problem on your road, although it seems that way. So it's really important to be able to tap into your department to actually have that information, so that we can explain to people and make good judgment and right decisions about where these speed bumps go. And I know for lots of phone calls and questions I get about having them on streets that are not necessary and having to kind of have that hard conversation with residents, it's really great to have that data to be able to follow up that information on. That was just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Corser. Any other questions from members of the non-committee? I've got a couple. The first one, oh, did I see you? No. I think I know what you want to say.
I was just going to make a joke that
Go for it.
it's one of the nice things about being mayor is I get to ask everyone who asks for a speed bump to go to the rest of the council.
Nice.
Because those are difficult deliberations.
Yeah. Yep, for sure, for sure. So I've got a couple of questions, comments, and so Ms. Banfield. So Mr. Hanrahan had said about the graffiti. Great point that Deputy Mayor Thompson brought up. I bring this up. I don't have that much of an issue in Ward 9. There's an issue or two here, but I'm fortunate that it is not from a place of like, haha, that is from a place of, I just want the city to get addressed because I know that kind of once it creeps up, it comes out of nowhere. The recommended thing was people can bring it to Service Barrie. It's the point of contact that we always encourage people. But I'll be a little bit more blunt than Deputy Mayor Thompson. I've done that not just to residents, I've done it myself with Service Barrie. And I believe the one at Painswick Park, that electrical utility box is still tagged. And that was like a year and a half ago. Now, that's not a criticism. So what I'm saying is, could it be, and we don't have Ms. James Reed here right now, unless we have her online, but could it be that maybe residents aren't identifying, they're not doing the best report. They're missing a picture, they're saying in that location, but they're not being specific. Obviously, pictures are best, getting the number on the box is perfect. So could it be maybe how we process the information? Or could it be that staff are doing their job, they're getting it to Electra, and it's just, how do I put it? They're just not prioritizing it because obviously we can't force a private utility company to prioritize those. I'm wondering where the pinch point is, because see if maybe we can do something.
Councilor Morales, Chair Morales, we'll have to get back to you on kind of what that pinch point might be, because I don't think any of us here can kind of speak to that, but I can certainly take that offline and get back to you.
Okay, perfect. And I want to end up in non-optimistic. Let's identify the pinch point. Maybe we can do something, maybe we can't. I know that the government relations representative of Electra is great. So maybe that's a relationship, and she's emailed all members of council before we can nurture and see what happens. So moving on, huge kudos, by the way, to staff on the new line painting. I sent an email a couple weeks ago. I don't know if members of council have noticed, Bayfield Street, they didn't just repaint it. The driving lanes got thinner, and sometimes at intersections where it's a little bit more built out, too much asphalt, people taking wide turns, they put in, I'm going to use non-technical terms, don't tell the engineering society, but I'm not an engineer, but they put in like little islands with the yellow and the cross diagonal lines, and they buffered it out. Essentially, they put in painted medians, which is the next best thing to real medians or planters, and it just was done really well and thoughtful. And it's not just Bayfield Street. There's other streets that like I could tell the difference. I wasn't looking for this, and it's noticed. So A, huge kudos, and B, is this a new standard from the Transportation Authority of Canada or Association of Canada? Is this just innovation and our staff, continually trying to improve service? And then the second to that is, are we tracking KPIs of speed reduction, if any, between the new line painting approach to the previous one?
Through you, to Councilor Morales, Chair Morales, honestly, the line painting is a yearly contract. So it is a new contractor, and we actually were in a meeting today just saying that they did do a fantastic job. So it's not really a standard change. It really is just a product of the contractor that we're using this year. But we were all saying the same thing. There weren't a lot of complaints. It seemed like it was smooth. So we kind of agree with you on that. We don't really necessarily, there's lots of speed data that we do, but we haven't necessarily put it before and after line painting.
Okay, no, perfect, and I appreciate your directness that it was kind of a contractor-initiated approach. And it's not a big change. Like if I hadn't brought it up, most people maybe wouldn't have noticed it. The planters I saw, there's 11 planters in the city. I wonder where most of them are. Are we keeping track and data on planters and baller speed reduction? Because I know we do it on the constable and obviously it's done on temporary cushions. So I saw a head nod, and I'm not trying to get too micro here, but I have had counselors in the past 2 years approach me and go, "Ugh, you're taking too much of a risk just going all in on planters," which I did. They work great where they work, and sometimes they're not so great. And so I'm wondering, from a formal data, like, it's obviously not as comparable of a speed reduction as the AED cameras, but what kind of ranges are we looking at? Even if a general range, because I know I'm asking you for a specificity here, and you don't have the 16 locations in front of you, but
Yeah. The speed reduction, obviously for a bollard location or a planter location, isn't quite as high as what we have for a speed cushion, but I would say that the reduction in operating speed is between 5 and 7 kilometers per hour, where with a raised speed cushion, we're seeing closer to 12. But it's definitely, anytime, like we've had these conversations, anytime we can narrow the road and make drivers feel uncomfortable, there's a tendency for them to slow down, and the presence of that bollard achieves that.
and that's for bollards, roughly the same number for planters?
Yes.
And, okay, interesting. Yeah, and I learned that sometimes a couple ballers will do the same as a planter did in some of our locations. So, and thank you, Mr. Sharp, for helping with that. And finally, quickly here, speed cameras, 80s. I'll call them speed cameras for the purposes of going forward. I don't like acronyms. It's more of a comment, maybe a question. In my experience, they work. And I saw some looks of shock around the horseshoe just now when earlier in your presentation, Ms. Banfield, when you said the rate of speed reduction that we're seeing on average. That's incredible. I know not all locations are the same. I know that that's a snapshot of a moment in time. But this is, as Councilor Corser rightly said, one thing is the Facebook conversation, one thing is opinions and standing, another thing is the data. And it's just great to see that. And these are tough conversations. When people feel like you're going after their wallet, it's tough conversations. They're not easy jobs, but it's really good that you've presented that data to us in a tangible way. And I know communications will consider as appropriate to broadcast that into the community to clarify. So I'm not going to say, don't you agree? But is there anything else you would like to add about the cameras? Because I know that has been a new file for your ever-growing and ever-important portfolio. Any other comment you would like to give to that?
Thank you for the question, Chair Morales, and like everything, when I stand in front of the council, it's never just me. Obviously, worked really, really hard with Wendy Cook's team as well, so it is the automated speed enforcement with the courts and legislative services. I think at the end of it, the data, I think we all just were surprised by how many people were driving over the speed limit, and I think it's a combination of what the cameras are showing, but even, as you said, the social media discussion, if you will, of people suggesting that they're getting tickets. I continue to say it's not a toll booth; it's a speed camera. So it's possible to drive past them and not get a ticket if you are going the speed limit. So at the end of the day, we really just want people to slow down. That would be the better result, to be honest. But I'll just leave it at that. But thanks for the question.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to the next presentation. I will take a moment to say that, because it was said like months ago when we set this up, there might be some overlap between this discussion and Barrie Police, specifically as it relates to speeding, because you have your enforceability and this and that. So, Ms. Banfield, are you going to remain in the council chambers for this section? In the possibility that there's a bit of overlap? Okay, perfect. So you will be a resource there. And at this point, I will now like to call upon second presentation is 3.1B from representatives of the Barrie Police Service Traffic Safety Department. I'd like to call Barrie Police Service to make their presentation. Chief, welcome to City Hall. 10 minutes as per the presentations, and we can take time for that to ask questions.
Thank you, Chair Morales. I'm sure you won't have any questions around the table, so we wouldn't take any more than 5 minutes. Chair Morales, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, Council, and to the committee, thank you for the invitation to speak. There will be some overlap. As a police organization, we are committed to road safety, and we are data-driven. We measure our success by reductions in pedestrian strikes by reductions in serious motor vehicle collisions. Those are actual things that we can attach to and say, are we successful or not? You'll hear me speak very little except to address some of the questions that may come up. I do have with me Staff Sergeant Randall Fitzgerald and our tactical operations crime analyst, Samantha Scott. We're going to talk numbers and facts. So appreciating there may be some challenging how we feel about this. I would park those. We're going to talk about the stats and what the numbers say. So I'll hand it over. Staff Sergeant.
Thank you. So we're going to look at, obviously for traffic safety purposes, the data we're going to look at is up to date to August 31st of 2024. The main source of this data is from the Collision Reporting Center, concentrating on the scene investigated collisions by our officers. When analyzing the data in April of 2023, we looked at, as I said, the scene investigated motor vehicle collisions were assessed and road segment IDs were used to identify those locations. The findings were 5% of the road segments in the City of Barrie experienced at least one scene investigated collision. Using evidence-based principles, the power of few, we looked further into the data and identified 9 locations within our city that were responsible for 14% of the scene investigative collisions. And those areas are the ones that we are treating with a visible presence, similar to we do with harm locations throughout the city. For tracking purposes, again, it was the CROMs and as well officers' proactive book-offs, and then we use that information to make an assessment in those areas. Findings we have found from April 30th, 2023, dating back 365 days, there was 14%, as I said, and then from April 30th, 2024 back to April 30th, 2023, it dropped to 8%. The average count of collisions per month decreased by 53% when comparing those 2 timeframes in those 9 locations. I'm going to hand it over to Samantha Scott to speak about some of our citizens on patrol.
So another program we take a lot of pride in at the Barrie Police Service is our Citizens on Patrol. When hearing citizens on patrol, a lot of people might assume that they just oversee community events and engagement, which that is true. That is a large role and responsibility for them, but they also assist with other important responsibilities, and one of them being traffic safety. Now, before I get into speaking about the different traffic initiatives they assist with, I do want to start off by giving credit to the ACOPA app, which is something all citizens on patrol have access to. It might come as a concern, recognizing that our citizens on patrol might do more than engagement, their safety, but this app helps us identify where they are at all times. It's through our CAD system as well. And it also helps with generating online reports for them whenever they are out and about. So like I said, they do help out with a lot of traffic initiatives and traffic safety. The first is in relation to stop sign violations. Our volunteers do not have the power to ticket. However, when a public complaint or concern comes in about a specific area, prior to sending frontline resources, we will advise our citizens on patrol to collect data within that given area. They are given some background knowledge on the Highway Traffic Act as well. So when they are seeing vehicles rolling a stop sign and so on, they will be able to collect that data manually. And then if they do recognize a concern, they will bring it back to our traffic unit sergeant, and then we will be able to deploy our frontline resources then. And the same goes for Speed Watch. If there are any public concerns or ward councillor concerns about excessive speeding, our volunteers will go to that said area, collect data, and use a radar gun if needed, and bring back that information to whether or not that area should be a concern for our frontline members. Similar to the Highway Traffic Act, they are trained to use the radar gun by our traffic unit. However, with the amount of cars that might come and go within a given area, it may lose credibility by not being able to record all vehicles that may be speeding. So therefore, they do have access to a Speed Watch app, which I have displayed on the screen there. And it's very simple and very user-friendly. The volunteers are advised to determine what level of speed a specific automobile is going at, and they can also determine what kind of automobile is passing through, whether it be a car, a bus, a van, and so on. And although this app, it doesn't capture the license plates as mentioned, the volume of vehicles in one area might be too much to determine specific plates or ownerships. However, it is still effective enough to identify whether or not a specific area is a concern when it comes to speeding, which they can bring back to our traffic unit as well. And finally, noise concerns is another initiative that our volunteers assist with, which is also something we've partnered with the City of Barrie on. Using a noise monitoring device, our volunteers with the COPS program are trained to monitor noise levels and note vehicles which register a red or high noise rating. And being able to identify the license plate or registered owner of the given vehicle, they may receive a complaint warning or a letter from our traffic unit as well. And over the course of 2024 thus far, our COPS have completed hundreds of volunteer hours, but between the 3 specific initiatives I just displayed, over the 2024 year, our COPS have attended 15 events regarding these initiatives, accumulating over 200 volunteer hours. And in conclusion, when speaking about our COPS program, we want to continue to recognize the great work they do because they do assist us with using our resources in the most effective way. As we are an evidence-based police service, we want to use these practices in all areas of our service to guide these smart decisions, both from a strategic and operational standpoint. So.
I know we went through that fairly quickly, so Chair, if you have certainly any questions, we'd invite some with the data presented.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your presentation. Any members of committee have any questions? Councillor Corser.
Well, welcome, Chief, and thank you so much for bringing your team here to do a presentation. I was really looking forward to this because there is a significant difference between opinion and fact. And as I mentioned before, collisions or incidents that happen, you find some things that are posted on social media or online, and it could be 5 different pictures of one accident at an intersection that has been misidentified as a location, and things go viral and everybody is concerned. The public feels unsafe. And I think it's super important that we have the actual data so people can understand exactly what is going on as opposed to what they're hearing second, third, fourth hand online. A couple of things I wanted to ask about was the online reporting tool. Now, in that online reporting tool, I've directed many residents to that online reporting tool. And there's a misconception that that reporting tool is only for actionable or if somebody can't report something because it's not immediate. Can you speak a little bit to how the use of that reporting tool, who can report on it, what information they need to have, and how that information is used?
Through you, Chair. So thank you for the question. The online reporting tool is one of many tools that the Barrie Police Service have to receive information. We act on the information that we do get. And as a data-driven organization, if we don't know, then we can't act on it. There is a wide variety of things that can be reported on the online. When we talk about everything, the myriad of crime, obviously if it's an immediate safety concern and it's ongoing, we would please dial 911. But if it's not to minimize the online process because it is quite robust. We have alternate response unit officers. They're police officers. And their task is to take that online information and not just record it and store it, is to explore it and what else can be done. We regularly received mischief type calls, theft calls, break-ins to vehicles and theft from those cars in neighborhoods. And we recognize that is an incredibly frustrating, invasive crime that occurs across our city, like every other city. But to feel helpless as a citizen is just, it's unacceptable. And you contact the police, and if you use the online tool, it may feel like it's just being recorded. We're doing more than that, and certainly when and I can think of one recent example where I received information where a photo was also sent in, and that information is then used through social media, and we leverage it as well because it can be used for good, to identify that individual. And sure enough, that individual was identified, stopped, and arrested, and had not been identified prior to. And it was incredibly helpful that one citizen, not realizing, sending that in, and I know it's frustrating for them, but the fact that they sent it in allowed us to address that for other citizens that were also victimized by that individual. And I would just one other portion there is I'd strongly recommend anyone viewing and the council, it's Dr. Ryland Simpson actually did research on the constable cutout. Doesn't matter how we feel about it, folks, if we know it works, it works. And so I would strongly urge, if there's questions about whether something is valuable or effective, we turn to the academic literature to see what's been done about it. Has it been tested? And has been, and I think you get a more robust answer in those areas. I would also take one other, sorry to, on the soapbox here, we are currently piloting as of Monday, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to this. It's a video call reporting. So we're all now comfortable post COVID with a myriad of programs, Zoom, Teams. We're actively testing a system where there's a sergeant vetting calls through our computer-aided dispatch, pulling them off and seeing if the caller would like to speak with an officer directly. They're in uniform, they're at our station, and it is a very formal process in terms of like, it is official, and they then engage with a online investigation with that individual. You're getting police, but police in a new age. And depending upon the call type, there's more effective ways than always having someone show up at your door.
I absolutely, thank you. I absolutely appreciate the Barrie Police Services and how they've taken that data approach and using different tools to reach out and the effectiveness of it. And on that point, the loud mufflers, the complaints that are received, and they're significant and they're important. And I know that in a society where we're triaging, trying to make that balance of harm, and I will. It is a harmful thing when I receive a lot of complaints, as other people do, and there's like, the talk of vigilantism about it, and there's talk about new mothers, and there's talk about autistic kids, and there's talk about all these things about loud vehicles. But I really wanted to ask was the challenges that the Barrie Police Services have in dealing with that aspect of traffic and noise control.
Through you, Chair. The experience of sound and noise, it is a challenge to enforce for a whole host of reasons. One of those being it's experiential, so it's what you may feel is loud. There are decibel levels and ways to officially measure that, and it's quite challenging to do that, and even the measures within a given society in a community versus in a rural community are night and day in terms of the decibel levels. There is a decibel level in this room right now, and outside, if I stepped outside the building, with just normal course of traffic, normal noise in a city, which is different than in the rural community. And it's one of those where to target that effectively, we have leveraged our citizens on patrol with the soundboard, and some people may not realize it. I would suggest to you, respectfully, that there are individuals who are purposely creating that noise and have potentially purposely altered their vehicle. And there is a route to be addressed with that when we're able to identify those individuals. And certainly when our citizens on patrol are sent to a particular area, repeated, when we receive complaints and they set up there, if they're able to take down that plate, our traffic unit can then follow up. It just, we are a finite resource, and trying to be everywhere at all times is a challenge. And I do recognize, to a degree, this is a seasonal issue. When it's minus 35 out in Barrie, a lot of windows get shut and a lot of doors get shut and the heat gets turned on, and it's that noise suddenly becomes less invasive and disruptive. It still may happen, but it's one of those that we are cognizant of that, and we are leveraging our resources as best we can.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember the good old days that when your muffler fell off, you put on a dark pair of sunglasses and a hat and like crunched down in your seat in your car so people wouldn't recognize you as you drove by because it was really actually embarrassing, as opposed to some bad actors today who take great joy in waking up neighborhoods at 2 o'clock in the morning. And to your point of being able to pinpoint a sound around a bay that has hills and bounce back and all the things, it's a very, very difficult thing to do. And hopefully technology will kind of, I know that there's technology out there, but that's completely cost prohibitive. So I'm hoping that, technology will improve, things will get better, that we'll be able to handle this in a much more effective way. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor Corser. And I don't have the ability to just put on sunglasses with the car I drive. People know which one it is. Any other member of committee have any questions or comments? Seeing none, members of non-committee, questions or comments? Councilor Rima.
Thank you, Chair Morales. Chief, I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and that is that your citizens on patrol, you really need to take a bow on that because they really are effective. We had a situation in Ward 1 just a week or so ago. They did a speed watch there and some noise work, and I don't know that the data came back, but really the more important part of it was the relationship that they built with the people that were walking by or living in the area and the conversations that went on for that. So I think that your citizens on patrol build a real great working relationship for the police service, and I really applaud that.
You can respond if you want, Chief.
Thank you, Chair. These are volunteers and people in our community, citizens, and they want to make it better. And every opportunity we can, we do recognize that. But I do want to acknowledge, and they come out day in and day out, and they want to make it better. And we are very, very, very thankful for their commitment and their passion for their city. And I do acknowledge that as well. And then if you saw them out recently in their decaled vehicle, and it is as obvious as we can make it that with that shared color scheme that they can see it, the public can see it, and we're there. And they do reach out and engage with the community passerbys, and I think that's incredibly important. So thank you for recognizing and acknowledging that.
Thank you, Councilor Rima. Chief, I do have a couple questions kind of here in closing. And forgive me if I missed a communications here, but what is the latest update on the internal portal for councilors? I don't know what to call it. I just know that, okay, perfect. You seem to know what I'm talking about there. I know that was in the pipe work, and obviously it's great to see that the external one for the community is kind of ready to go. I'm just wondering, and the reason I ask is we're the point of contact for a lot of people. Like the councilors, they know their neighborhood associations, their groups, their city, their street mayors, their leaders in the community. So it kind of like goes up the chain of command sometimes. And frankly, some councilors develop great relationships with the community officers. Some develop great relationships with different staff and sergeants, some with you. And so there's no formal way. And sometimes I feel bad, like, do I email you directly or something like this? Or do I go to someone and do I text you? And I'm speaking from my experiences, but I just don't want other councilors to be maybe hold back some stuff or feel like there's that. So that's why I was really excited about when I heard earlier this year that. So do you have an update on that?
I do, and thank you for the question. So with the release of the new the Barrie Police Service website and with the community safety portal, and I would strongly encourage everyone watching and even council to, if you want to explore that, it is optimized for a handheld, but really it works best on a laptop or on a home computer. There's a rich level of data there that perhaps hasn't been there in the past. We respect the fact that if we're policing by consent, transparency has to be part of what we do. We hold data, but it's not ours. This is community data, and respecting freedom of information and not identifying anyone. The more data we can share with our community, the better, because that informs our community better. We had spoken with respect to specific portals for individual councillors for their wards. The actual safety portal can be, there's different filters that can be put on, so you can look at your specific wards and see what's affecting them in terms of different crime types, different accident types, all across the board. And it is quite rich, and I would offer it to council, to members present to explore it. It is accessible through our main website, and we want to see how well that goes first, because it may answer a lot more questions before the need to further explore one specific to councillors, because I think if that information is out there, you may not get the call in the first place. Because if people have access to that data and they want questions on it, maybe it's answered right there.
So Chief, just to clarify, will there be an internal, and it's not about data, it's not a CRM, will there be an internal just communications channel for counselors, or are you saying counselors are encouraged to use the public-facing one for any counselor communication efforts?
Oh, and I apologize.
Yeah.
So are we, so Chair, just for clarification, are you with respect to specific counselor concerns to deal with the police?
Correct.
So generally speaking, I would strongly urge the council to go through the community safety and well-being officer, and currently that's Constable Brooks, and through that area. Staff Sergeant Fitzgerald will correct me if there's another avenue to approach. No, that's yes, that is the one. So,
okay.
And that can be actioned out and parsed out throughout our service to whichever
Yep.
unit or area.
Can be triaged, perfect. Duly noted. Earlier, there was a comment made about like the speed mufflers, and I get the response you gave, and I wait with anticipation to see if the technology that's been piloted in Fredericton and a couple of others in the UK finally comes here. And I understand, I can appreciate you and the service cannot be everywhere. I totally understand that. And this is going to bleed into my next question, and I can also understand that it's a little frustrating sometimes us getting facts from Facebook groups. We live in a world where we're in a vacuum of facts and a buffet of opinions. I literally came up with it on the spot today, and it's frustrating. It's not funny, it's frustrating. However, sometimes, and maybe with your previous answer, Officer Brooks, maybe that gets communicated the best. But I can tell you right away, and it is somewhat seasonal. The muscle cars get put away in the end of October, but I can tell you that if you go to the Grove Street Plaza in Ward 1 on Friday and Saturday between 10:45 p.m. till 1 in the morning, you will it's not about getting tickets. You will see some behavior that, as you said perfectly, some people do it on purpose. This isn't just the muscle car slipped up a little bit. They're going out of their way. And I pick that area just because I see it in the group. Listen, it's not in my ward, my jurisdiction, but I'm going to be a lot more mad if it starts happening at the plaza at Yonge and Big Bay tomorrow. So it's a tough job because you guys have information overload. You have to validate the information, confirm it's not just people it's gossip versus fact. But on something like that, I'm not asking you to go to the grocery plaza Friday, et cetera, but what does it take? Is it resources? Is it time? Is it a notice to that email to start kind of sending that message? Because what I fear is when people are doing that, and that is like the plaza owner is annoyed and there's steps that are being taken, and I understand the communication is get plates and do that stuff, but if they know what's gonna happen, and you more or less know the time it's gonna happen, if they're already there, or if officers, as appropriate, I'm not directing operations, but if they show up in non-marked cars and they're kind of parked, people think that the cars got left there overnight, you get it, because when people don't get consequences when they know they're doing bad behavior, they're like, I'm getting away with it, and it starts to proliferate, like graffiti, like other actions. So I guess, how would you kind of address some of those comments?
So we're challenged in a free and democratic society, because I think the simple solution would be for industry to respond appropriately. I wouldn't want to restrict one's ability to showcase an investment, an expensive investment in an automobile, but quite honestly, purpose of a muffler can be enhanced or quite honestly prohibited from making any sound whatsoever. There are businesses that sell aftermarket, but it's allowed. That can be altered through legislation. There's a whole host of factors that can be taken in place when you purchase a vehicle. I mean, the challenge you face is that some vehicles roll off the line with a decibel level that would upset a lot of people. I don't want to point to anyone specific, and so I won't, but there are certain types of vehicles that make a lot of noise, and purposely so, and that's part of the deal. And then other people will alter their vehicles. But a lot of the time that may not upset someone, but a relatively quiet vehicle may upset someone on a given day. It becomes quite complex. With the vehicles in the parking lots, and we do have those issues happening in our city like everywhere else, we're targeting them as effectively as we can. Sometimes, though, they are simply showcasing their vehicles with their hoods up, and again, I'm not here to judge. It's one of those that we recognizing what's happening. Fair enough. But if they're damaging the property, and that is sometimes what we face, we're working with the property owners to address that as best as possible. The Ministry of Transportation as well, depending upon to and from, as well as our community partners in terms of the other police services in the area, because it is not a specific issue to Barrie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that answer. And just to clarify, yeah, I'm not talking about the Canadian Tire. They pop up the hoods and sit there on whatever days. Not those. For the purposes of my comments, I'm sure there are people that have concerns with that. And sometimes they get rowdy. I'm talking about literally grocery plaza, not just doing donuts to the point where like it is super obnoxious. And yes, they have a nice muscle car. And now here's the thing. It went from comments and people living nearby to a couple of really passionate people. Now it's videos. So it's like, it's a little more tangible. And again, I don't direct operations, so I don't know what your onus of proof is, which whatever it is, license plate and more. So I'll leave that to the responders. But yeah, so no, I appreciate your comments. And then finally, my last one here, how it ties in. When we live in a vacuum of facts and a buffet of opinions, I actually had somebody message me, I guess they're watching the meeting, and say, this was their opinion. I definitely don't share it this black and white, but they said, I wish the government would just repeal the law that made Meta get rid of showing news stories online. It'll make sense in a second. I wish they got rid of that because since Meta prevented stories from media to be there to tell the stories, and he said for himself, he goes, I just get most of my news from these horrible groups. So, and this is someone under 30, just for context. So, as a result of that, Barrie Police Service does incredible work. I'm sure we could spend 3 hours here, everybody sharing 3 stories in their ward or initiatives. So let's not pretend that incredible work isn't happening. But when the media, when the most of the news consumption is happening from these groups, and we live in a democratic and free society, and people can have opinions, and the moderators, it's a tough job. I'll leave it there. Maybe it could be better, but I'll leave it there. What is Barrie Police doing to enhance and improve its own communications? Because I've noticed, and you were not the first department, that comments were restricted a bit ago, and that was a voluntary thing that had nothing to do with the national law, and you were not the only department that did it. I know some even other politicians also did on their pages, and I know it's selective on posts. Sometimes they're open a little bit for sharing and time-sensitive issues, so I understand. But are you doing anything, and if you are, what are you doing to essentially put yourself in a situation where you control your own narrative as an organization instead of letting people with opinions control your narrative for you?
So thank you for the question. So Chair, we, as recently as this summer, we actually had a student attached to our strategic communications group. And we do have members within our organization that are, their role is media response, putting out our information, our narrative. But again, we were looking for what works and what doesn't, and where the data was. And it was just interesting. We had it tracked in terms of how far our reach could go and how big it could get with different types of stories. And again, that will inform our future practice. And I think nice surprise, some of the more positive stories had the best reach. And it shouldn't, and I will, so there is the incident with respect to the ducks being rescued out of the, by our special constables and our downtown initiative officers with community groups, and stories involving dogs, which is just, this is the human condition and just the positive stories. We have shut down comments, and the only comment on that is, if we're going to take comments, then you better be ready to respond to them. And if we're not monitoring Facebook 24/7, folks, and if someone puts something in there that we should have responded to, we do recognize there's a world of liability here, and we just can't. So monitor that 24/7 every second of the day. And so that was the primary driver for that, just for a little clarity on that.
Yep, that's important context. Chief, I want to thank you and to your staff as well who came here. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for making yourself available. So now we will move on to the last page. Sorry. Yep. The held recommendation by Councillor Corser, additional membership. I've already read it out loud. Councillor Corser, the floor is yours.
I'll put it on the floor as printed. Yeah, just a question for clarity. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I understood that there is a request to add more members to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Committee, and those specific members being added are more people from, excuse me, trying to find it now. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. So that the composition of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee be amended to add member representatives from the County of Simcoe, social housing, emergency shelters, and homeless prevention programming, and from the Barrie Area Native Advisory Circle. Excuse me, tickle there in the throat. So I'm just wondering, I'm surprised that actually the outreach wasn't there. It was an oversight, and these things happen absolutely. But is the County of Simcoe, do they not have members on that committee already? I'm not sure. I'm directing that through you, Chair, to, would that be CAO Prowse or Ms. McAlpine? My apologies.
Through Chair Morales to Councillor Corser, the County of Simcoe was selected by Council to represent the Children's Services sector. So they have a representative currently from their Children's Services. In terms of the request from the committee to add representatives, based on the initial consultation with the committee members on risk factors that continued to be a challenge, and those that the committee was interested in potentially pursuing. It was deemed that with housing, mental health, and addictions, that an individual from not just the Children's Services, but from the housing, emergency shelters, and the homelessness prevention might be an appropriate addition. And a part of the legislation is to ensure consultation specifically with Indigenous peoples, and Barrie, an area Native advisory circle, is focused on Indigenous health services, so they were determined to be an appropriate entity for the committee. One of the cautions and one of the items that the county would be considering is whether or not they could send a representative who might be able to address both children's services as well as social housing, emergency shelters, and homelessness prevention. In case they're not able to find a single individual who could attend each time, the membership would if this is approved, the membership would allow for representatives for both of those individuals. The caution here is that the committee is already quite large, and obtaining quorum becomes more challenging the more members that you have on a committee. But the committee does intend to consult with a number of organizations. I believe the number was at 49 as of the last meeting on September 17th.
Through you, Chair, thank you for further information. There's so many complex issues in our community right now, as we all know, and to have as many knowledgeable voices and lived experience, and everything at the table is very important. But to your point, the larger the committee, the more complex it becomes.
And if I could add, one of the things that this council did was it invited more of the umbrella organizations, which to utilize the number of members effectively so that they can reach out to the organizations that are within their association and get insights and guidance from them so that you can expand that opportunity. The person who is representing a particular sector represents a group of voices rather than a single organization. And I think that's a benefit from this council's decision.
Thank you very much. It's a tough balance, and it's so important to have everybody's voice that needs to be at the table heard. So as the balance to the size of the committee, quorum is difficult, so it's good to hear. Is moving forward with this initiative, when does this initiative wrap up? When does could you remind me on that?
The legislation as currently written requires that the existing plan be reviewed and revised if appropriate by July 1, 2025 for the City of Barrie. And then within every couple of years after that, a similar review and revision. So at no point is it done. There is a continuous review and revision process that's involved. This is a relatively short timeline to complete that review and revision at this particular time.
And I have received some questions about that, and I just wanted to comment that that initiative is separate, wholly separate than the Community Safety Committee that we are sitting at today.
The Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Committee reports through Community Safety Committee, but it is not the same committee.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Corser. It's on the floor as printed. Are there any questions, comments, amendments to the motion, additional membership, that the composition of the Community Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Committee be amended to add members, representatives from the County of Simcoe, bracket social housing, emergency shelters, and homelessness prevention programming, close bracket, and from the Barrie Area Native Advisory Circle? Mayor Nuttall.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kungle and myself sit on this committee, so maybe providing some background to the conversation we had. It was brought up at the meeting that we didn't manage to include a representation from the Indigenous community and First Nations community when we struck the committee as council. And so Bannock was one of the organizations that was brought forward, and it was recommended that they were the best positioned. In terms of the information that was received back, and there was a survey done of the different outfits that are sending representation to the committee. I actually purposely did not fill out the survey because I didn't want to skew it in any direction. I wanted to see what came back. The top 4 responses were all the same, essentially. There were 3 of them that were focusing on homelessness, addictions, lawlessness, and the 4th was the lack of coordination between social services to treat those 3. And so when we started looking around the table at who's responsible for dealing with those items, when it comes to policing those items, it's not the City of Barrie, it's the Barrie Police Department. When it's looking at treating those items, sometimes it's the RVH, sometimes it's the Family Health Team. There's an organization that I know Councillor Hamilton will probably be able to remind me the acronym for, which is the health team with all of the other services. And sometimes, a lot of the time, it's the County of Simcoe and its homelessness prevention services, which we did not have around the table. And so when you go out and you do a survey of all the individuals who are saying and asking them, what do we need to focus on? And the one person you need at the table is not there, there was a need to expand that number and, and be able to address that in the future. Otherwise, and this is how fundamental it is, otherwise, we would have a committee that's committing to a plan that have no levers to implement the plan. And I don't think that's where we want to be. I don't think we want to set false expectations. I don't think we want to write a report that sits on a shelf for 4 years. I think we want something that's going to be living, breathing, vibrant, and individuals will be going to be able to be holding these organizations to account for the decisions that are made at this with this plan. So that's the context and the background, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mayor Nuttall. Any other? Oh, okay, so as printed, all those in favor, please indicate. That's unanimous from the members of the committee. Thank you very much. We don't have reports to committee or items for discussion. However, before adjournment, there was one of the items that went on consent, the bylaw, the proactive bylaw enforcement. I believe Deputy Mayor Thompson had a comment / question, and I also had one. So Deputy Mayor Thompson, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, and it's more of a comment. Council had asked staff to take on a proactive approach at some of the things, and we, not knowing much about it, like we were looking for like 50% and stuff, and it's impossible with, court systems and all that stuff and going through all the paperwork. And our goal was to achieve 25%. And, the report come back and, Ms. Banfield's team's done such an excellent job. We've hit almost 30% and Banting, sorry. Sorry. I'm glad I made you come back so I could get your name wrong. I apologize. Yeah, Miss Banting. And it's more about an appreciation. Like, we never get a call. Yesterday I got a parking ticket. Thank you. So I just wanted to say thanks and, great work by your team and stuff like that. It was, it was nice to see. And I've had more calls about the enforcement being more proactive than reactive. So that's all. I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. We must have been reading each other's minds because I wanted to make similar but different comments. So you touched at the top of the report, the goal was 25, the 28.9 was hit. I'm going to go a little bit to the bottom of the report. The violations resulted in an additional, and I love that it was clarified, that is not the total number, an additional 496 properties were subject to proactive property standard enforcement because of violations. Obviously, it does not divide evenly by 10 total the wards. I'm sure there's more wards that are having the burden of this a little bit more. But I love the specificity of this report saying that, and I'm definitely going to communicate to my residents. That number is really important. And then, as always, and I always compliment staff because they should be complimented when they're direct and when they're blunt. We all know that, no surprise here. I love this wording here. The change to our response and overall ability to address concerns more effectively includes a 7-day-a-week response to all matters, which has resulted in numerous noticeable improvements throughout the community. That being said, violations will continue to happen despite our best efforts to both respond and educate the community on the regulations. Changing behavior does not happen overnight. However, the enforcement team, service team, has made a marked improvement, which is anticipated to continue to improve over time. I love the directness, I love the taking ownership, and just kind of the reality check. And then finally, staff will continue to run media campaigns, reminding the community to be a good neighbor and comply with all bylaws. This will continue at different intervals as the seasons change and brings different challenges. Incredible memo, Ms. Banting, to you and your team. I personally, I'm only speaking for myself, I appreciate that directness. It's just like, hey, it's not going to magically go away. This is the reality. But as Deputy Mayor Thompson has said, I've been not just hearing from residents, almost appreciating more, I've been seeing it around the city. It's not perfect, and Ward 9 is definitely doesn't bear the burden of this, but it is a lot more visible in other areas of the city. So thank you for the work, and thank you for the memo. So Councilor Corser, go ahead.
Yeah, that kind of slid by me because I really wanted to comment on that because Ms. Banting, thank you so much. As the offer of a basket of puppies and yoga mats still stands because your department has got to have the toughest job in the city, and it is a very thankless job. And I just want to say thank you so much to your team, everyone on your staff. It is greatly appreciated, and I want them to know that it is greatly appreciated by all the councillors at this table. I am sure everyone will agree that we are very much in debt to your team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Corser. With that, we are at adjournment, and this concludes, I don't need a motion to adjourn. This concludes the Community Safety Community Meeting. We are